What's going on YouTube? This is Devin coming back at you with another video today on PubStop MTG. Glad to have you here. Today we're going to be making a deck tech / upgrade to the Swarmlord. A day or two ago I did make a deck tech on Be'lakor the Dark Master, so if you haven't seen that, come check it out. But today we're going to be going over the Swarmlord and the abilities it does have. So what are its abilities? So it has the Swarmlord enters the battlefield with 2 1/1 counters on it for each time you cast your commander from the command zone this game, and it does also have whenever a creature you control with a counter on it dies, you draw a card. So any kind of counter, whether it be a 1/1 counter, or for example a trample counter, or even a negative -1/-1 counter as well. The counters can kind of be endless with this one, which is very neat. I like the play style of this. It's a pretty easy build around. Make sure you have 1/1 counters on your creatures and then sack them later so that you can get some card advantage. I really like this, and the Swarmlord can get bigger each time that it's cast. So first, let's talk about some of the cards that are in the Precons. Obviously, the Tyranids are a big factor into this because this is a new creature type into the Magic the Gathering. These cards do feel Sliver-like. You'll see why in a little bit, but because they each buff each other little by little. For example, you got Old One-Eye, which comes into the battlefield with a 5/5 green Tyranid creature token, and it gives other creatures you control have trample. So this is a really good option so that your team gets buffed with those trample. Also, we do have Tyranid Prime as well, which has evolve, and also other creatures you control have evolved. Another great buff for your creatures is Winged Hive Tyrant, and it has flying and haste, and other creatures you control with counters on them have flying and haste. So what I really like about these, instead of slivers only buffing slivers, each one of these creatures buffs each creature you control instead of just worrying about a specific group like Tyranids. There's also a really fantastic card, and I really like this one specifically. We have Genestealer Patriarch. It has Genestealer's Kiss. Whenever Genestealer Patriarch attacks, put an infection counter on a target creature defending player controls, and has Children of the Cult. Whenever a creature with an infection counter on it dies, you create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's a Tyranid in addition to the other type. There's a lot of things to like about this creature. I really like how whenever you put a counter onto another creature an opponent controls, you can make a copy of it if it dies. So there's a lot of really great creatures in the format, and so you can take advantage of that with Genestealer Patriarch. Moving along, we have an incredible anthem for your creatures that have 1/1 counters. We have Clamavus. I'm not pronouncing that correctly probably, but each creature you control gets 1/1 for each 1/1 counters on it. So your creatures, if you say that it's a 5/5 with 5 counters on it, it'll become a 10/10. So really great right here. I really like that ability. Especially if you have a big board of creatures that have 1/1 counters on them. This could be a game ender in most situations if they have trample and all that stuff. So I really like this card for an anthem for your 1/1 counter synergies. Also, I am a big fan of giant creatures. So whenever I see giant creatures, my eyes get wide open. We have cards like Hierophant. I'm not pronouncing that correctly too. There's a lot of cards here that I'm not going to pronounce correctly. Tyranid's probably another one of those, but this is a really awesome card. This guy gets cheaper for the number of 1/1 counters you remove from your creatures, and so this could essentially be a 2 mana 12/12, and also has Vigilance, Reach, and Ward 2. Plus, this can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. So no chump blockers right here. It's just a big beefy beater that I absolutely like. So these are definitely some of the cards that I felt like I wanted to highlight and flesh out a little bit from the Precon deck. A lot of other cards that have really great synergies in the Precon deck, I would definitely add those in as well. These are just some of the big highlights. So now we're going to move away from cards from the Precon. We're going to talk about cards you should add into the deck. There are a lot of really great cards to add into the deck in my opinion. First up, we have Herald of the Seeker Stream. This is a perfect card in the deck because we have a lot of creatures with 1/1 counters on them, and with Herald's ability of your creatures can't being blocked, that could be a game ender right there as well. Also, another great addition is Shaman of the Great Hunt. It has haste, and whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, put a 1/1 counter on it. And also, you could draw cards for each creature you control with power 4 or greater. This is a perfect card in the deck because a lot of our creatures are going to get bigger because of those 1/1 counters, and you're able to draw a lot of cards because of this ability right here. We do also have some great haste enablers. We have Hana and Elena Partners and Rhythm of the Wild. I especially like Rhythm of the Wild because your creatures can't be countered, and non-token creatures you control have Riot, which they can either enter the battlefield with a counter or have haste. Plus, with Hana and Elena Partners, they could add counters onto your creatures and give them haste as well. So these are perfect fits to have in the deck. Also, another really great card is having Inspiring Call. You get a draw card for each creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it, and those creatures gain Indestructible. So a perfect card in here because you're going to be drawing a lot of cards. We also have another really great synergy with Defiler Vigor. Definitely my favorite cycle of the Defilers from the Dominaria United set. So what does it read? As an additional cost to cast a green permanent spells, you may pay 2 life. Those spells cost 1 green mana less to cast only if you paid life this way. This effect reduces only the amount of green mana you pay. Whenever you cast a green permanent spell, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. Yeah, that's gonna get really crazy in my opinion. Like, there's a lot of green permanents in this deck, so having that way of just constantly putting counters on your creatures and getting that reduced mana cost, though you're paying 2 life, this is a perfect fit in the deck in my opinion. I think this card is absolutely crazy. I feel like, honestly, it's a little too powerful, and especially in this deck. So now that we talked about putting counters on your creatures, we want to talk about sack outlets that you could have so that you could abuse your commander's ability of drawing a card. Because of that ability, we have a lot of really great options for sack outlets. We have Greater Good, Birthing Pod, Life's Legacy, Ashnod's Altar. I think these are fantastic in the deck. I like Greater Good because you get some good card advantage, especially with those big beefy creatures. You have to discard 3 cards. That's not a big deal compared to how much cards you're going to be drawing. Also with Birthing Pod, it's fantastic because you can search for a bigger creature as well. Also Life Legacy, I thought I would add it in here because you could definitely draw more cards off of your big creatures and draw another card on top of that with your commander. I thought I'd add Ashnod's Altar in there because if you want to draw more cards, you can just sacrifice a creature, not a big deal, and add more mana to your pool. Plus, if you do sacrifice these creatures, the Ozolith is perfect in this deck because whenever a creature dies, you can put those counters on Ozolith, and then you can put those counters back on another creature. So this is just a win-win overall with these synergies with these sack outlets and the Ozolith. So sack outlets will definitely get you there, but we want to make sure we have some big payoffs like doubling our counters. There are a lot of really great options for doubling your counters. We have Deep's Glow Skate, which is a fantastic include because on ETB, you'll be able to double the number of counters on each kind of permanence you control. Also with Branching Evolution, whenever 1 or more counters would be put on a creature you control, twice the many counters instead. You do also have Vorinclex, Monstrous Raider, which is an insane card in my opinion. Absolute include because you could double the counters on a creature with ETB, and also whenever you're adding it onto a creature as well. Another really great addition would be Ancient Bronze Dragon. It didn't get as much hype as the Brass Dragon in my opinion, or the Silver Dragon, but this one's really good in this synergy because you have a really good chance of putting an insane amount of counters onto creatures you control. Speaking of great counters, we also do have Colonian Hydra, which whenever Colonian Hydra attacks, you can double the amount of counters on each creature you control. So these are all insane options to add into the deck, and these could end the games pretty quickly. Speaking of winning the game, we do have Simic Ascendancy as well, because whenever you put 1 or more 1/1 counters that are put on a creature you control, you put that many growth counters on Simic Ascendancy, and at the beginning of your upkeep, if Simic Ascendancy has 20 or more growth counters on it, you win the game. Also, it does have that nice addition of putting 1/1 counters on target creature you control. So if having big creatures and smacking them at your opponents isn't enough, this is a great win con for your deck. So overall, I do like this deck a lot. I think there's a lot of good changes you could add into the deck to make this really powerful. I really like the ability of drawing cards with the Swarmlord. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and let me know what you think of the Swarmlord and how would you build him. So with that out of the way, thank